Welcome to Money 911, where we tackle financial emergencies head on. I'm thrilled to have with us today a true financial first responder, Lou Scatigna, CFP, known as the financial physician. Lou has been diagnosing and treating financial ailments for over 23 years on his popular radio show. He's also the author of The Financial Physician, which uses health analogies to break down complex money matters. All right, Lou, it's fabulous to have you here on Money 911.
Nice to be with you, Kris. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Right. You know, you've been hosting The Financial Physician for over 2 decades. And I really resonate with that because I'm talking about healthy money, and I'm on the safe money side of the conversation. What do you think is the most common financial disease that you see affecting Americans today?
Financial illiteracy. Most people don't know much about money, and because they don't know much about money, they don't want to engage with money and finances, and it's something they push off to the side until it's too late. So I've been a big advocate about financial literacy, teaching kids personal finance in high school. Why can't we have one course, 1 year, every year in high school to teach them the basics of balancing a checkbook, how taxes work, what credit cards are, how do you buy a house, how do you stay out of debt? What are we teaching our kids these days? We teach them about things that they'll never use in life, and we don't teach them the things that they need to know in life.
That's it right there. You're speaking my heart. Look, I've been in this for 35 years, and literally I'm just launching a financial literacy course. And I'm really excited about it, going into the schools and the high schools. We have 28 states right now that have made it mandatory that you can't graduate. Imagine that, from high school till you take this class. And I'm sure it's a limited class because once you get out of high school, they're going to give you the credit cards once you get to college and get you trapped into the debt. But in your book, you use health analogies a lot to explain financial concepts. So give us an example how this approach kind of helps people understand money better.
People understand their health. We understand when we're sick. We understand when we have cancer. We understand when we're not in shape. All right. So I learned early in my career as a financial advisor that if you use medical analogies, it kind of hits with people. Like I say, credit card debt is cancer to the financial body, right? Something very simple like that. People get that, right? So there's so many similar things between health and finances that I think that was a great analogy. And 25 years ago, I decided to say, you know what, how about the financial physician? A money doctor that tries to make you financially healthy and show you. And my book was all about symptoms, prescriptions, how to get the treatment that you need to improve yourself financially. And the first chapter of the book, as we just talked about, is financial literacy, and why most Americans fail is because of financial literacy.
Exactly. And you know what? You go to school. This is what I found. It was not that I'm so smart, but talking to thousands of people, it's this pattern, right? You go to school, you learn how to make money, you get out of school. What do? You go make money and give it to someone else to, right? Invest, gamble, do whatever. And you know what shocks me, Lou, is when they get to the retirement age, they start their retirement plan at 50 and 60, right? Because
there's been a big, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
But in my career, I've been a financial planner for 40. This is my 40th year. Next month will be my 40th anniversary of being a licensed financial advisor. And in the first 20, 25 years of my career, when people retired, they retired without a mortgage, without car payments, with a pension usually, and they had a pretty comfortable retirement. Nowadays, what I'm seeing in my practice is people retiring with a mortgage still, with car payments still, sometimes credit cards, and many times student loans that are quite sizable, and a very small, no pension or a very small 401k. How are these people going to survive in retirement? We have a retirement crisis on our hands here that is only going to get worse. And I fear that we're going to have a poverty situation of elderly people in this country, that makes me very sad. When I go to the grocery store and I see an 80-something-year-old woman at the cashier, it breaks my heart. Because she's not there because she wants to be there. She's there because she has to be there, right? And that's a sad thing. And hopefully people are getting seeing their parents fail financially in retirement, and maybe that motivates them to max out their 401k. Maybe they don't need that new car every 3 or 4 years. Maybe they can keep that car. Most Americans are in a perpetual car payment situation where their whole lives they're paying for cars. This is crazy, right? And debt, they say debt's a 4-letter word. I mean, you want to be earning interest, not paying interest. If you think about all the interest you pay over the course of your life, it's mind-boggling. Between mortgage interest, car loans, credit cards, if you saw that number, how much money you're throwing out the window in interest. And, that's one of the things about successful people. They earn interest. They don't pay interest. They sign the back of checks, not the front of checks. Is that right?
Exactly.
Right? So, but we do have, it's very sad. We do have a major retirement crisis in this country, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, if it gets better. And that really concerns me as a financial advisor.
So imagine you're speaking to someone that's just realizing, I think he's talking to me. I'm financially sleepwalking. What radical first step would you prescribe to wake them up and kickstart their financial revitalization?
Well, the first thing is they have to understand what debt is. That there's good debt, there's bad debt. Good debt is a 2.75% mortgage over 30 years to acquire a home. Bad debt is 25% credit card debt. Right. Yeah. And with interest rates going up over the last few years, debt has become much more difficult to service for these people. So they're drowning in debt. The key is you've got to change your lifestyle. You can't live the way you've been living if you have debt service. You have to change your lifestyle and attack your debt, especially the highest interest rate debt, which is almost always credit cards. Once we start bringing down our debt, then we could think about maybe freeing up some money for savings. That's a novel thing, right?
Wow, imagine.
Again, instead of paying somebody else interest, maybe we could earn a little bit of interest for a change.
Right. And, do you tell people to consolidate, to make a negotiation to get their debt down? Because some of these people have like $20,000, $50,000 in debt and they have no savings.
Yes. The first thing I look at with a new client, now most people come to me have money. They're not in that situation, right? I don't deal a lot with people that are struggling. All right. It's not my business, right? People aren't going to come to me for that. But I still have family and friends and that come to me and want advice. And I try to tell them, look, first of all, change your lifestyle. You don't need to go out to eat 3 or 4 or 5 days a week. How many people go out for lunch every day at work, right? And do the math. Then they stop for breakfast at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or something. Where is your money going? And I think the first thing anybody needs to do, people come to me at 50 years old, 55. I need to start retirement planning. We make good money, but we can't save anything. Well, where does your money go? And they look at me like, well, spend 3 months, write down every dime you spent. Every dime, a cup of coffee, ATM money, fixed expenses, every dime you spend, and look at it. And now you'll know where your money goes. That's why you're not maxing out your 401k or putting money into an IRA account or saving for retirement, right? Or paying down your mortgage, because your money is going to, it's disappearing down the line. And a lot of it's going to interest to make other people rich, not yourself.
Exactly. We're talking about protecting and preparing ourselves, for a coming financial crisis. So this is Money 911 and 911. And I talk about that a lot. And I repeat it, Money 911, because it is a financial crisis. And, even people that are in debt or people that have a lot of wealth can lose a lot of it, like we did in 2008. I don't think this is going to be 2008. It's feels a little more scarier to what I understand, and I don't have the knowledge that you have in that area. I mean, it's, what do you say? what are you going to tell? What are the top three things that you could tell the listeners to prepare for a financial crisis?
Listen, in 40 years in financial services and advising people, I've never been more nervous about markets and the economy than I am today.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult because I'm a financial advisor. I'm responsible for hundreds of millions of people's money. I mean, I have 600 families, mostly retired. I'm a financial advisor to the senior community. I learned early in my career they had all the money, so why not be an expert in seniors? So I'm an expert in estate planning and income investing, end of life planning. We do a lot of that now. Many of my clients have been with me for decades, and sadly, many of them are leaving us now. And we do a lot of that planning, and that's. But advising people now is very difficult because we live in a world we haven't lived in a long, long time. Geopolitically, domestic politics, markets are way overvalued. What happens if we wake up tomorrow morning and one of our battleships had been sunk by a torpedo in the Middle East or an aircraft carrier? I mean, would that surprise you? I'm afraid to get up when the first thing I do in the morning is turn on my computer and
I know.
What news headline came out last night?
Which war started, right?
Right. So we have black swan risks, and they can come from anywhere. And let me tell you, when this market starts going south, it's going to go panic south.
Yeah.
And we're going to see, and you mentioned before, it's not 2008. It could be 1929 and 30s. Right. And given the financial status of the average family right now, who could hardly make ends meet now when the economy supposedly is still doing fairly well. Right. Stock market's at record highs today as we're recording this. Right. What happens to these people when it goes the other way?
Right.
And it goes the other way in a big way. And I see in my career, people come to me the first time and they say they have a 500,000 401k or $1 million 401k. And usually that's all they have because they have debt on everything else. Right. And I say, well, what's your risk in that 401k? What's your equity exposure? First of all, they don't know what the word equity means. Right. So I have to say stock market exposure. And then they look at me like they have no idea. Well, why would they know? You know, a lot of the funds that they have, they don't know what it means when it says growth fund. Mm-hmm. They don't know what it says emerging markets fund or international fund or balance fund. What does that mean? Does that mean bonds? Does that mean stocks? They don't know. So when I look at it and I evaluate it and I say, you know, you're 85% in the stock market and you're 60 years old. Are you nuts?
Yeah.
People have too much risk, and people do not engage in their finances because they're financially illiterate. So they just leave things the way they are. They never look at their 401k and say, well, okay, what's my asset allocation? Isn't that the basics of investing? How much do I have in the bond market? How much do I have in cash? How much do I have in stocks? And what could happen to me if the market goes down 20, 30, 40%? And in 2008, unfortunately, many people came to me for the first time in tears. Pre-retirement, because they didn't realize the risk that they had, that they could lose 20, 30, 50% of their retirement virtually overnight, right? Thankfully, if they didn't sell, which many of them did because they panicked, because when we manage our own money, we're driven by emotion,
right?
Fear and greed, which means that we buy high because we're greedy. Everybody else is making money and we missed it. So we have the fear of missing out, right?
Right.
And then when the market goes down, they panic because I'm losing all my money and they sell the bond.
Right.
That's why financial advice is so important. And that's why 401ks are so dangerous, because most people don't have financial advisors when it comes to their 401k because those assets are somewhere else. I get paid an annual management fee to manage money. I don't get paid to manage your 401k, right? So you don't have an advisor there. Now, for my own clients, I always evaluate their 401ks and tell them what to do. But if you don't have a financial advisor and if you don't have assets outside of the 401k, you're the financial advisor. And if you're your own financial advisor, you probably have an idiot for a client.
Oh, boy, absolutely. What is it? 60, 70% of people that make 100,000 are living paycheck to paycheck right now. I mean, couldn't get any worse than that. And I'm not, I'm looking at the bricks and I'm looking at the whole value of the dollar and all of that coming in. there's so many different factors to it. It isn't just the interest rate, but the value of the dollar. What do you think about that? Do you look at that as a threat to the value of the dollar, the BRICS and the currency that they're trying to create with Russia and China and India and all that?
Absolutely. I've talked about it on my program many times, that the BRICS are a very powerful alliance. They're a powerful economic alliance, but they're also going to be a powerful military alliance. Think who's in this.
Hello.
What? Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, right. China. Right? We can go on, and it's growing. So many more countries are applying to it. So the West is losing their wealth.
Yeah.
The East and the BRICS have commodities, which makes them very, very wealthy, and they are a true danger to the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar has been chipped away at for a long time now. They're going to come up with their own currency, probably commodities-based, while the U.S. is under huge budget deficits, printing money like crazy, politically unstable. So, yeah, the biggest risk that we all have is a currency crisis where nobody wants the U.S. dollar anymore. Nobody wants U.S. bonds anymore. How do we finance our deficits if nobody else wants to buy our treasury bonds? I mean, Japan and China and at some point Russia were big buyers of our debt, right? They don't want it anymore. They're dumping it because they know it probably is going to default through inflation or a currency collapse or something else. So who's going to buy it? The buyer of last resort is the Federal Reserve. And where do they get their money? They create it out of thin air.
That's right.
That can't be good for the currency. It can't be good for our inflation, right? Yeah. So I'm a big believer in protecting yourself against the currency because the currency is going to go down. Look, since 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, we've lost, 96% of our purchasing power on the U.S. dollar, right? So the rest of it's going to go at the end. Yeah, you know what they say, it's gradual, and then all of a sudden, right, you do have a hyperinflation situation. Right. And people don't understand what happens when your currency loses purchasing power is that you have hyperinflation.
Right.
And then people panic and they don't want the currency anymore. I've studied the hyperinflations in Germany in the 1920s, the early 1920s. Yeah. The hyperinflation in Austria after World War II, hyperinflation in Argentina. I've studied all these, and the recipe is always the same. A country is a surplus nation. They become powerful. They become imperialistic. They spread their military across the world. Then all of a sudden, the people start wanting to get more and more paid for by the government, and then the government starts social programs, and then they go into deficit, and then they issue bonds, and then eventually they become so indebted that they have to print money to pay the interest on their bonds and continue to deficit spending, and then it ends in hyperinflation and destitution. Yeah. Right now, I don't want to be a gloom and doomer on your program, but I'm just saying there's ways you could protect yourself from that. All right, and I have. Hopefully you have. But I think the average family, I hate to think what's going to happen because they're struggling now. Think about, I know families that make decent money. You mentioned it before. You make $100,000, $150,000 after taxes. If you live in a state like I live in, New Jersey, our property taxes are high, our car insurance and everything's so expensive. That's before the hyperinflation. What happens when everything... You think 7-9% inflation is bad per year. How about 15% per month? You know, the definition of hyperinflation is 50% per month, right? And people don't think it could happen here. Why? It's the same recipe every time. Every time. I've studied all these hyperinflations, going back to Rome.
Yeah, right.
Ancient Rome, right? It was the same. They started diluting the silver in the denarius. Right. Well, we're diluting we went off the gold standard in 1970s with Nixon, and now we just create money out of thin air. It dilutes the value of the existing currency. And any other country who's done that in the past wound up with currency collapse, hyperinflation, and you lose your status as a world power. And unfortunately, we're on that path. And I guarantee it's going to happen in our lifetime, Kris.
I think,
Hopefully 10 years from now or 15 years from now, but could happen in 3 months.
That's right. You're absolutely right. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And I also have this, not a gloom and doom, but these are facts. And you can't say it any better than what you just did. But I also feel this. I keep feeling that's going to be the black swan event that they'll use to get rid of paper, right? It's all intentional. This is all not whoops. It's whoops. We made a mistake, but this is how you collapse a great nation. And like you said, it's happened many times, but the black swan event or whatever's going to happen that's going to trigger this, whether it's during an election or after the election or down the road, what would you tell everybody? What you tell them to get gold, or you tell them what suggestions do you suggest on that part?
Well, I'll tell you what I've personally done. Okay. I have a third of my wealth in real estate.
Okay.
I have a third of my wealth in precious metals and a third of my wealth in stocks, bonds, and cash. All right. So 2/3 of my wealth are in hard assets, which are immune to a currency collapse. I mean, real estate will go through the moon if the dollar collapses, because gold's at record highs right now. The 26, it just hit a new high today when we were recording. And 2,600, 2,700, it doesn't mean anything, right? Gold never goes up or down. It's just the currency changes. How many units does it take to buy something? All right. Right. It's the currency. It's the US dollar that changes, right? An ounce of gold never changes. How many US dollars it takes to buy it changes. So you think, and a lot of people are asking me now, well, gold's 2,700. I missed the move. Should I buy it? Should I buy silver? Look, it's 2,700. What happens when hyperinflation hits? It becomes 10,000. It becomes 50,000. It becomes 100,000. You're not really making money, but you're preserving your purchasing power that you have. You're preserving your wealth. Here's an example. In Weimar Republic in Germany, after World War I, Germany had to pay reparations and rebuild Europe after they destroyed it. Right. They had printing presses because there was no electronic means of creating money at the time. And they printed Reichmarks, trillions of them, billions of them, whatever. And an ounce of gold in 1919 was 183 Reichmarks. By 1924, it was 80 trillion Reichmarks to buy an ounce of gold. The currency disappeared. Right? That's what happens. Gold didn't change. The Reichmark changed because they diluted it to the point of where it had no value. And back then, you got paid twice a day in those times. And as soon as you got paid, you ran outside to your spouse, your wife, and she took it and ran to the store and spent it all before the prices went up. Right? You think it can't happen here? Like I said, the recipe is always the same. And we've done it on steroids. So anybody who thinks it can't happen here is got their head in the sand. And if you haven't prepared for it, even stocks, the stock market in Germany went to infinity when the Weimar collapsed. Is it really going anywhere? No, but it just preserved wealth. If you have money in a bank account, or you have money in a money market account, and that happens, all your wealth disappears overnight. Right. But if you have something that's real, something that you could hold, an ounce of gold, a home, something that's real, that will at least preserve your purchasing power. It won't make you rich, but at least you won't get poor. And that's the whole idea where you mentioned before. How do you do it? Yeah, you go out and buy some silver. If you don't have a lot of money, buy 10 ounces of silver. What's it going to cost you? It's $35 an ounce, $38 an ounce. Right. Do something to protect yourself. Right. And pay down debt. That's the most important thing that you possibly could do. If you eliminate debt from your life, the first time I became debt free was emancipating to me. Right. I had sold a house I had for a long time, and I had a very nice capital equity in it. I bought our other house for cash. I paid off my cars. And I didn't know what to do the first of the month. Who do I pay? I have nobody to pay. You know what I mean? It took me a while to get used to the fact that every quarter I got to pay real estate taxes. That was part of my mortgage payment. So being debt free is so liberating because now it allows you to earn interest instead of pay interest.
Right. That is so good. And you're showing people how to create a financial sanctuary, really. Like a safe haven with their finances and what and where to put it, that will weather these storms, and it's just history repeating itself. Do you lean on silver because it's limited and they use it for computers. A lot of people say got more silver than gold, and in your 1/3 of what you have.
I believe silver will outperform gold uh, when it starts really moving. Silver is way below its all-time high. Its all-time high was $49 an ounce in 2011.
Oh,
Right now, it's $32 an ounce. Right.
yeah.
Meanwhile, gold is at all-time highs. Silver, it takes 84 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. I mean, it used to be 20 to 1, right?
Yeah.
So silver is very undervalued, and silver can go up multiples in percent terms that gold can. And it's affordable. It's the poor man's gold, right? Right now, how many people can go out? How many American families can go out and pay $2,700 for a 1 ounce gold coin? Not too many. Right? People with money can, but not too many families. But you could go out and buy 100 silver coins for $35 each and have something.
Yeah.
Right. So silver is probably a good way to go unless you have a lot of wealth. If you have a lot of wealth, then you'd be better off with gold because gold is wealth preservation and silver is a currency. And if it hits the fan, then you'd want to have silver because gold can't be broken up. You have a 10,000 ounce gold coin. How do you go buy food with it? You can't.
Exactly.
But you could take a 150 or 200 ounce silver coin and go buy something with it. Right. So I think the first place to start for the person who's trying to get started in precious metals and they have $10,000, buy 1 ounce gold coin and take the rest to buy silver.
There you go. Well, that's really clear. So, when you look ahead, and you've really studied this, what is your prognosis, doctor, for the U.S. economy in the next 5 to 10 years? Are you optimistic after all that? Or are you concerned?
Obviously, I'm concerned. Forget 5 or 10 years. I'm worried about the next year and a half. Who knows what we look like after that?
Right.
In so many different aspects. I mean, politically, culturally, the country is falling. I truly believe that we're in the middle of a battle of good versus evil.
That's it.
And I believe we really are dealing with demonic forces because you can't explain some of the things that are happening in our country or the world because how do you justify some of the things? Ninth month abortions, transgender stuff with little kids. I mean, how do you even think that this is happening in our country? It's not normal. It's demonic.
It is.
Right. And I believe a lot of our politicians, I don't want to say they're possessed. Maybe they are, or the demonics. I don't know. But things don't seem right. And people I talk to, everybody I talk to in my client base that come to see me or I talk to on the phone say the same things.
Yeah.
Lou, what's going on in our country? What's going on in the world? Everything seems to be black seems white, up is down, and everything is the backwards of what it should be. All right. So we're dealing with more than money. We're dealing more than economics. We got a bigger issue going on. And I don't want to sound like a preacher or anything like that because I'm far from it. But you can't argue the fact that these are not normal times. Right.
No.
Just my dad, he's been dead 5 years. You wouldn't believe what's happening 5 years after his death. Oh. Like the changes that have happened so quickly.
I know.
And they don't seem to want to stop. And look, at the end of the day, Kris, at the end of the day, I believe good will beat evil. God always wins.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
And I believe that there is a reason why we're going through this.
Yeah.
But back to the economy, I think we are in a recession or will be very shortly. The Federal Reserve last week lowered interest rates a 0.5 point. Why would they do that after they finally beat inflation, they say? Why would they start going back the other way? It took so much to beat it. Why are you going back the other way? What do they see in the economy that most people don't see? I see it because I look at this stuff. But consumer confidence, housing prices look like they've topped. We're seeing all kinds of aspects of the economy. They don't report. First of all, I don't trust anything the government reports as far as economics go. Everything is propaganda now. Yeah. Nothing is truthful. So how does the Federal Reserve do interest rate policy when the government comes out and lies about the CPI?
Yeah.
Or the job creation or unemployment rates? I mean, how do you make policy when you can't trust the information that you get?
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
I think the economy is in recession. I think the Federal Reserve, who has their own economists and their own metrics, know what's really happening to some extent. For them to go not even a quarter of a point, they went a half a point.
Yeah,
They see something that we don't. And some people are saying that the rest of the year they're going to lower it maybe even another point. You know, that's just going to stoke the inflation again.
yeah,
All right? So I don't get it. Uh, the big problem that we have now too is that due to the rising interest rate environment, the interest on our debt has skyrocketed to over $1 trillion a year right now.
yeah,
Maybe that's an issue they're trying to tackle because they know it's unsustainable. We have a lot of banks in the United States now who hold a lot of bonds. We saw what happened a year or so ago with the failure of banks that were holding bonds that were worth 50%. And when people withdrew the deposits, they had to sell them and became insolvent. So there's a lot of problems in the banking system. There's a lot of things that we don't know about that are going to come out
yeah,
post-election. I think they're going to try to hold it all together the post-election. And I think if Trump wins, they're going to want to dump it all on him and say, look,
yeah.
Trump got elected. Look what happened.
Right, exactly. Or push them out. Right. It it's so crazy. It is a war between good and evil. It isn't just what we're seeing with our eyes. I am in total agreement, and I'm happy to talk about that. But what do you think? The first of the banks go because they're insolvent. What do you think about insurance companies? They seem like, and I always say that insurance companies are the last to go before Jesus comes because they've got, and I'd say it jokingly, but seriously, I mean it now. I'm looking like really because every $100 you have with them, they have 125 to 130 or something in reserve. So they're the last, on the pyramid of the falling. Would you say they'd be the last to go?
No.
No,
The banks would go first.
thanks for
The insurance company would go second. If you recall in 2008, major insurance companies were teetering. I'm
Mhm.
talking about Hartford. I mean, there were some
Right.
big
AIG.
insurance companies because they have derivatives. They have a lot of bonds. And if you have the currency collapse we talked about earlier, hyperinflation, all their assets are going to plummet. And people have money in annuities and stuff. They think they're safe. They're not. They're just as susceptible as a bank account is. Now, for last 2 or 3 years, maybe even longer, I've been telling my listeners that do not have your life savings in a bank.
Mm,
You are nuts. First of all, they don't pay anything. So what's the advantage of having it there? You should have your cash money in U.S. Treasury money market accounts. All right. At least they can't fail on you.
mm,
Uh, it's the safest place you could be. Now, inflation may eat you alive, but at least the institution is not going to close and say you have no access to your money. So credit unions probably are better than regular banks, down the line. But people have their life savings in financial institutions, don't realize the risk that they really do have. And then you look at the bigger banks, especially. I'd rather be in a community bank than be
right.
in JP Morgan Chase or
Right.
Bank of America. Now, people say, well, I walk into my bank and there's a big plaque there. It says FDIC insured, all right, up to
Right.
250,000. Well, do you know how many trillions of dollars of the bank deposits there are and how much the federal FDIC has? FDIC has about 125 billion in their reserve fund.
Mm,
That's fine if a Silicon Valley bank fails, right? What happens when Bank of America fails? They have 1.2 trillion in bank deposits, right? FDIC can insure 3% of those deposits before they are insolvent. And if Bank of America is failing, so is Wells Fargo, so is PNC, so is Chase. They're all connected with derivatives,
right.
right? They're all dominoes.
Mm,
And you know what'll happen? They'll be bailed out again with
right.
printed money, which would
Mm,
cause the currency collapse and hyperinflation, right? So, yeah, you could say that the FDIC can go to the government and get more money. But if they're going to borrow $5 trillion from the Fed and the Fed's going to print $5 trillion, we're all going to get our savings back, but it's going to be worthless.
yeah. Right. That's what Grandpa used to say. The wheelbarrow with money, and here we are walking into that. Ah,
Right. And that's
right.
what comes back to hard assets, owning things as
Mhm.
opposed to having savings, own real estate, own gold and silver and oil and commodities and food.
In
Probably the
food.
best investment you can make these days is food,
Right.
right?
Right.
What
Right.
what what good is it going to be in and we're getting kind of dark here, and I didn't really think we would go down this path.
Okay.
But look, we have to talk about it
It's
because
real.
the chance of it happening is real.
It is
Uh,
real.
and it is going to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
The question is it going to happen 20 years from now or 2 months from now?
Right.
I think it's closer than it is further.
I
Right.
do too. I do too.
All right. So the question is when you have hyperinflation and you have bank failures and you have empty shelves in supermarkets, would you rather have money in the bank or would you rather have food in your pantry?
Right.
Would you rather have, things that there's nothing more important than food when you're starving, right?
Yeah.
I don't care if I have $20,000, $100,000 in a CD. If I can't access it and I can't access food for me, my kids, and everything else,
Yeah.
what good is it? Right?
Exactly.
And you'd be surprised how many people have less than 2 or 3 days food in their house.
That is surprising. Exactly. And they don't know how to even improvise, right? Do some beans and rice or whatever. Yeah.
Well, look what happened during COVID. We all saw people fighting over toilet paper and crazy stuff like that. I mean, what the hell? I have 300 rolls of toilet paper in my stash, right? I didn't go fight people for toilet paper. Why don't you have it? It's on sale. Buy extra, right? Have canned goods. I have more pasta than I could eat the rest of my life. Right? I got freeze-dried food. Right. I could stay, in the worst case scenario, I could stay at least 6 months in my house without walking out the front door and still be alive.
Right.
If you're listening to this and you can't spend 2 weeks in your house without leaving it, then you better rethink where your money is and where it should be.
Good point. Very good.
Because
point.
food is a hard asset. It's the hardest asset when you're hungry.
Right. So that's really priority. And I know it's a dark, but we're talking about financial crisis, and this is Money 911. And that's really on my mind. I can't get it off my mind. I feel like I'm running in front of a fire, wanting to help people the best, because in a way we're all a little bit blind because we can't see the future, even though we've been told or prophesized what would happen. We don't really know how and when it's going to happen. So how do you encourage people after, how to stay financially resilient or optimistic with all these things we're talking about? You're saying U.S. Treasury market. So is that paper that they're investing, or is that a stock? I mean, tell exactly that's your first thing that you said was U.S. Treasury market.
Look, it won't do well in inflation, but it won't close on you. All right. Okay. See, when there's a banking crisis, banks have a holiday. Sounds like a good thing. Go over there and have some turkey and a pumpkin pie. It's not a holiday. It's meaning that they're closed and you can't get your money. Right? Why they figure out what the hell we're going to do. Right? Are we going to get a bailout? What's the FDIC going to do? Are we going to merge with another bank? Or maybe for like 2 months, you can only take out X number of dollars off the ATM. That's it.
Right.
So I don't want to have no access to my money. In a U.S. Treasury money market mutual fund, every mutual fund company has these. Vanguard, Fidelity, every brokerage firm has them. All right. What is it? All it is a mutual fund that owns short-term Treasury bills. They'll never default. They may be inflated away, but they'll never default. Right. Whereas a bank can close saying, our assets are much lower than our liabilities and we're broke. Right. And your money's gone. Now go to FDIC and see if they can help you out, right? In a U.S. Treasury money market fund, it's T-bills. Uncle Sam can continue to print money and pay off their debt, so it's not going anywhere. That's not where I'd have all my money. I've moved my clients, okay, and we do this once in a while. My clients right now at my firm are 100% in U.S. Treasury money markets. And we moved them there in August. I moved them there the week after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Because my indicators, my technicals, and my advisors that I work with, we all feel that we've entered the most dangerous phase in America's history.
That's right.
Between now and year end. The pre-election, the second assassination. What do you think would happen to this country if Donald Trump is assassinated prior to the election? What happens? I don't even know what the mechanism is for election day. Is it J.D. Vance becomes automatically the presidential nominee? I don't know. We're going to be in no man's land. we're going to have civil unrest.
Right.
You think, look, we're entering a period of civil unrest no matter who wins.
No matter what, right.
No matter who wins. Mm-hmm. If Trump wins, the left, you're going to think the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa riots were big in 2020. That's nothing. They're going to burn the cities down. Okay. Yeah. If Trump loses, Trump's people are going to say it was stolen again from us. Mm-hmm. We have no democracy. Democrats like to say, well, Trump's a threat to democracy. Well, what is democracy? Being able to vote for your leaders that you want. Stealing that is the biggest threat to democracy there possibly is. So Trump supporters will be in the street. And, typically
or in jail.
Or jail. Well, yeah. Typically, Republicans are laid back. We don't take to the streets. We have jobs. We don't have time to protest. But it comes to the point when you're pushed to the wall and you realize that your way of life and your country, is slipping away from you. Yeah. And maybe even your own life's at risk. And the right in this country is armed. The left, guns are bad. Unless you're Kamala, she has a gun and she'll use it if you break into her house. That's what she says. Right. I doubt she has a gun, and I doubt she knows how to use it. Right. But she's trying to straddle the gun control with the gun lobby. It's politics that don't work. Yeah. But no, we're at big risk, and I think of civil unrest, market volatility like we haven't seen in a long time. And I made a decision for my clients. We manage money. We don't sell investments. And I'm managing my money for protection right now. Okay, we are going to protect ourselves. If I miss an opportunity to the upside now, so what? We had a good year. We're not giving back our profits. And I want the dust to clear post-election, whatever that will be, which won't be election night, I'll tell you that, to see what this landscape looks like to decide what I'm going to do. So I sleep at night. I've taken the right positions in my own personal finances. I've done it for my 600 clients. And no matter what happens over the next few months, we'll be okay.
Fabulous. Lou, I could talk to you for hours. This is great.
I could talk for hours too.
Yeah, I'm sure. But it's fun. I like the conversation. Tell everybody they can get in contact with you if they want some help.
Okay, first of all, the best thing anybody could do is listen to my podcast each week because we talk about all these things. It's money, markets, politics, personal finance. The show's been on for 25 years, 24 years on a big radio station here on the Jersey Shore, and about 8 years on the podcast. My website is thefinancialphysician.com. We upload a new podcast every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. You can find it on any Apple podcast, anywhere you want. It's called The Financial Physician. That's my brand. My book right here, The Financial Physician. You can get it free of charge on my website. It's an electronic book. It's a very basic book for people to get financially literate. This is great for a young couple just getting married. I'm not selling the books. I'm giving it away for free.
Well, that's great. I'm going to get one.
There you go. If you want a hard copy signed, anybody wants it, email me, lou@thefinancialphysician.com. But listen to my podcast. You'll learn a lot each and every week. I really work hard on it. We upload a new one each and every Sunday at 7 a.m. But just go to thefinancialphysician.com. All our podcasts are there. And my email address is lou@thefinancialphysician.com.
Fabulous. Lou, you're priceless. Really, really appreciate talking to you today.
Love to be on with you anytime, Kris. Great to be with you.
All right. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening episode of Money 911. Lou has shared transformative insights that challenge us to think deeply and act wisely about our financial futures. The journey to financial security and growth begins with a single thoughtful step. Start today by examining your financial health, diversifying smartly, and creating your financial sanctuary. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Let's continue to inspire each other to stay proactive and empowered on our financial journeys. Until next time, stay vigilant, resilient, and always open to opportunity. There's so much to learn about healthy money. I hope today's discussion brings you one step closer to securing and protecting your future. So you can get started on the right foot, go to meetwithchrismiller.com and schedule your free financial fitness strategy session. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to Money 911 so you don't miss our next episode, which includes health, wealth, and peace of mind.